I expected maybe 2.
We are grandmothers.
You are grandmothers. Well, you're still mothers. You're super mothers. So it's good to see those of you that are here. It's going to be, at least for this first session, it's going to be better to sit way down up here so you can see the screen, because you're going to be reading off the screen, and sometimes the print is kind of small, so it's going to be hard for you to answer the questions. So you're going to be able to have to read. The screen is not bad; it's pretty good size, but you may have a tougher time reading the screen on the material, because we're looking at labels this morning, how to read labels. And so as we start, let's have a word of prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you so much for your blessings, and we thank you for your guidelines to health that help us to live life and live it more abundantly as you have wanted us, and you want to save us body, mind, soul, and spirit. So we pray that as we spend this time together, that you will open our hearts and minds to receive what you want us to hear today in regards to helping us to live lives that are living sacrifices to you, that will preserve every power that we have in its best condition for our highest service to you and our fellow men. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, we're going to talk about label reading, and when we've looked at people's ability to read labels, it's difficult and it's confusing, and I don't even know if it's designed to be that way, but it is confusing. It could be by design, and we'll get more into that, because there are, if you look at the nutrition facts label, there are 3 different systems going on. You know, percentage of the daily requirements, and you know, how much protein and how much fat and how much carbohydrate, are there added sugars, and what kinds of fats are there, and then they go into other things. So there's actually 3 different systems that you're looking at, and it could be extremely confusing. So we're trying to make it very simple for you to rapidly read a label and figure out, should you put it back on the shelf, or can you leave it in your cart, or can you put it in the maybe pile? You know, that's, you know, you got to sort through this. And because there are so many, there are thousands of products in the supermarket, you've got to be able to do it quickly. So the idea is to help you choose the healthy food in under 10 seconds. If you practice it and get going on it, you can do it. But you've got to do it. You've got to practice it. And I've got a little tool for you that you can carry around to help you remember the things that we talk about today. All right, so the best foods to eat are the ones that don't need a label. Right? You just go to the produce section, and there aren't any nutrition facts labels on there, because they're all okay. They're all okay. So all these whole foods that you can get in the produce section. So you should really spend most of your shopping time in the produce section, which is on the outside, you know, and leave the middle. So that's where you want to head for, is the produce section. So no labels are best. So, but if you have to encounter packages, cans, boxes with nutrition labels on them, then you want to pay attention. So there are a few rules that you have to remember. Number 1, never, ever. In medicine, we don't always like to use that word never, ever, because, you know, it can come back to bite you, but this is one of those things that is a never, ever. Believe anything on the front of any package. Now, why is that? What? They're trying to sell it to you, exactly. All right? They're trying to grab your attention. They're competing with tens of thousands of other products right there in the store, and they're trying to get you to stop and to even consider it. So it's going to be the colors, it's going to be the words on the front of the package, it's going to be where it's located. Is it at eye level, below eye level? You know, the the food industry pays premium dollars to have their products at eye level in the marketplace. So the markets are not only making a profit of you buying the products there, they're making money off of the food companies that are trying to sell their products and have their products in the best location possible. Front of the store when you first walk in or something, eye level, whatever it is, whatever they've figured out are the prime areas. You know, it's kind of like real estate, right? Location, location, location. So the front of the package is designed to grab your attention. So what do you think are things that are going to be catchwords that are going to grab your attention now? What's going to grab your attention? What words on the front of the package would? Healthy. Quick. Fat-free. Gluten-free. Sugar-free. What? Anything else?
Zero calories.
0 calories. Okay. Yeah.
And the price tag. I believe most people look at the price tag. That's the first
At the
thing.
price tag. Oh, boy. You might, okay. They don't do that in California. They don't even look at the price tags in California because everything's high, so it doesn't matter. All right. So, never ever believe anything on the front of any package. All right. Now, see, this is why I say you have to be up close. What here is going to catch you as far as, okay, it says healthy. What else does it say?
The carbs.
Yeah, it says avoiding carbs. We'll get to that today in the afternoon because people are doing that. You know, they have carbophobia, I call it. So avoiding carbs. So a person is thinking that, wow, okay, that might be something. What's that?
Healthy life.
Healthy life.
High five.
High fiber. Okay, we'll talk about that later today. All right, there's also some little ones. Reduced calorie, excellent source fiber, low fat and no trans fat, 99% fat free, saturated fat free, cholesterol free, no high fructose corn syrup. Tastes great. All right? I mean, there are a ton of stuff here to catch something of what you're looking for. The only thing that I don't see here is low sodium, because some people are concerned about that, right? So, because the doctor told them he cut down on the salt. So, all right. So that's why you don't want to believe anything that's on the front of the package. What about this one? Lower your cholesterol. A lot of people have high cholesterol and are told to get it down.
Real honey.
Real honey, yeah. Anything else? Gluten-free, right, gluten-free. All right, so these are things that are designed to just get your attention. All right, so what about this one?
Fat-free.
It says fat-free. Without, yes, okay, high fructose corn syrup, partially hydrogenated oils, artificial colors, flavors, and preservatives. And those are good things. I mean, it's not to say that they're lying, but they're using catchphrases. Whatever is the catchphrase of the day to grab your attention. So they change the label. They may not change the product, but they'll change the labeling and the packaging to get you. So in some places, like in California, it's like keto friendly. You seen those? Keto friendly. So if you're on ketogenic diet, you know, or low carbs or whatever it is, they'll tell you, you know, this is keto friendly because that's kind of a buzzword that, you know, the Southern Californians like. So it has all these other things, but, you know, just the fact that it's devil's food ought to tell you something that maybe it's not so good. Right. Okay? All right. So that's rule number one. Rule number two. Always. So there's a never and then there's an always. Always read the nutrition facts label and the ingredients list. You cannot go only by the nutrition facts label. You have to go by the ingredients list. You have to check both against each other, okay? Because there are ways to deceive you in the nutrition facts label that you're going to catch them on by looking at the ingredients. All right? Okay, so remember, never and always. Okay, good. All right, so the first thing you're going to check when you look at a product is the sodium. You're going to look at the sodium, and this is kind of the recommendations. You don't need to remember those unless you are really having to watch your sodium really carefully, like you have hypertension. But if you don't, then you want to look at the ratio of the sodium to the calories. So on the nutrition facts label, it's going to say so many calories per serving. You do kind of want to look at that, what the serving size is, right? Because sometimes they'll get you there. So it's the calories per serving, and then the nutrition facts will give you whatever it is per serving. So it'll give you the sodium per serving. Now, what do the milligrams of sodium have to do with the calories, right? It's only because we want to get you down to where your sodium is lower than the calories you take in, because most people take in, let's say, 1,800 calories for women, sometimes 2,100 to 2,400 calories for guys, depending on how active you are. And so if your sodium is lower than those calories, then you're going to be limiting your sodium to some extent. Okay? So you want to look at the milligrams of sodium, and you want to look at the calories, and you compare them. And the sodium should be equal or less than the calories. That's all you're looking for. And that you can just look at in seconds, and you go like, okay, we'll give you some examples. Okay, here is some Select Harvest Campbell's soup. All right, so what is the calories per serving?
110.
110, and what's the serving size?
470 or 410.
How much is serving size? 1 cup. Now, how many servings are in this can? 2. So if you are going to have the whole can yourself, not splitting it, then you're going to have double that. Because this is giving you a serving size, and there's 2 servings in that can. So that's what I'm saying. You have to kind of look at the serving size. Because I've seen some of these packaged noodles, and you go like, oh, that's not too bad. That only has 800 milligrams of sodium. Well, that was half the package. Who eats a half a package of, those noodles? No. So that's doubled. You're at 1,600 milligrams. You're already way high for the day. All right, so you have 110 calories per serving. How much sodium is there?
410.
410. So is the sodium equal or less than the calories?
More.
It's way more, right? It's more than double. So that one you'd throw out right away. You don't even have to read the rest of the label. That's it. It's gone. It didn't pass mustard, in other words. So you have these benchmarks, and if it doesn't meet any one of those benchmarks, forget it. There's some that are kind of get close, and you kind of go like, well, can you fudge a little? It depends on the context, right? It'll depend on what else you have the rest of the day. Okay. So the next thing, that's just the sodium. You look at the milligrams of sodium compared to the calories. Now, the next thing you check is the fats. And here's where you have to do some math, ladies. Calories from fat should not exceed 20% of the serving calories, okay? That's trying to limit your fat. And the reason why we wanted to limit the fat was because high amounts of fat in your cells that aren't supposed to have fat lead to insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. So you want to kind of limit the fats. 20%. How do you calculate 20% of anything? What?
210.
2/10? Okay, so.
Double tie. A tie is easy. You can just double.
Okay, you tithe it and double it. Okay, that's a good way. That's a good way.
Because we're used to doing the tie.
If you're used to doing tithe. So what's a fast way of doing a tenth? Exactly. Move the decimal point over one space. Okay? And that takes a tenth. So you move it over to the left, and you got 1/10, and then just double it. Okay? You can divide it by 5. You can multiply it by 0.2 in your head. I mean, whatever you have, if you want a calculator, whatever you have that can calculate 20%, however you want to do it. The way I do it is I look at a tenth and then double it. Okay, so that's what you want to register in your head, is that number that you get. Okay, 20%. That's kind of the benchmark. Okay, so yes, math. All right, here is Back to Nature multigrain flax crackers. And how many calories per serving?
120.
Yes, you're right. So that's why I say you have to sit up close. 120 calories per serving, and a serving size is 3 crackers. 3 crackers. All right, 120 calories and 3 crackers. That's 40 calories per cracker. That's 4/10 of a mile you have to walk per cracker. All right, to burn that up. So this one gives you the calories from fat. What does it say? How many calories from fat?
4.5 total fat.
It's right up, right in this, it's in the red circle. It's 40. So there's 40. So what is 20% of 120? 24, exactly. All right, so the calories from fat are 40. So is that under 20% fat? No, because your benchmark is 24. It's 40. It's higher. So it's more than 20% fat. So you'd throw that one out. Okay. Let's go to the, so you have 33% fat. What you wanted was 20% fat. So it's got 40%, 40 calories out of that serving is fat out of 120. Too high. Exceeds 20%. All right, look at this one. Here is fat snacks. That already gives it away. The front of the package already gave it away. Fat snacks. You know, why would they name that? I mean, it's kind of, you know, if someone was trying to lose weight or something like that, you're gonna, why would you call it that? But anyway, fat snacks, cookies. So the calories are how much? 100 per what? 1 cookie. That's a mile. And so 1 cookie, and it has fat, but it doesn't tell you the calories from fat. So this is where they also trick you, or they want to play on your ignorance, because you don't know how many calories are in a gram of fat. So you're going to look at that and say, oh, 12% sounds like a low number, so that should be okay, even if it's a fat snack. Well, let's look at it a little bit closer. Okay, it says how many grams of fat are there in a cookie? 8 grams. 8 grams. Who knows how many calories there are in a gram of fat?
96.
What?
96.
9.
9.
9. So there are 9 calories per gram of fat. Okay, so that's something you have to remember. 9 calories per gram, because they don't always give you the calories from fat. They just give you the fat grams, thinking that, oh, you have no clue. But because you've been here, you know there's 9 calories per gram. So how many calories of fat are there?
72.
Yeah, 72. Now, what's 20% of 100? 20. So are we higher or lower than our benchmark of 20%? We're way higher, right? We're at 72%. So this cookie is 72% fat. About 3/4. Yeah, almost 3/4 fat. And you want to be at a fifth or lower. So it's too high, all right? So the fat snacks are going to have to go. All right. The other thing you have to check on the fats is what kind of fats. So even if it's got acceptable amount of fat, you know, or it's like borderline, maybe it's like, okay, it's like 30%, 25%. It's a little bit high, but then look at what kind of fats there are. All right, because you might throw it out even though it's relatively low in fat, it's got not the fats you want. All right, so that's why you have to read the ingredients list. So you're looking for saturated animal fat. Okay, if it's got animal fat in there at all, it's going to be primarily saturated. You're looking for saturated plant fat, which are what we call the tropical fats, the coconut and the palm. And these days, most food companies are using palm oil or coconut oil. They're not using animal fat. They're not using lard, stuff like that. So if you see lard, that's animal fat. But if you see coconut and palm oil, that's what most of them are going to, because it's plant. They can say it's plants. But the other problem, though, is these are saturated fats. Okay? They're just as bad, if not worse, than the animal saturated fats.
What is saturated?
Oh, good question. I'm going to have a talk on fats because we've gotten so many questions about that. So a fat is, fats are three chains of what we call fatty acids linked together. So you've got a 3-carbon molecule called glycerol. There's 3 carbons. And then you've got a chain of fatty acids hooked to each one. And these fatty acid chains can be short, the short chain fatty acids that we talked about yesterday, and we'll talk about a little more later today about fiber, the short chain fatty acids. Then there's the medium chain, which are a little longer. And so the short chains are like 2 carbons, 3 carbons, 4 carbons. The medium chains go up farther than that. They're more like 6 to 12 carbons hooked together in a chain. And then you've got the longer ones that are 18, 22, 24 carbon length chains. In these chains of carbon atoms, there is usually a bond between them as they link together. And if there are, all of the bonds are what they call saturated, in other words, they're full, then there's a saturated fat. If in the bonds there's like one of them that's unsaturated, then we call it a monounsaturated fat. And if there are multiple unsaturated bonds, then it's polyunsaturated. So unsaturated means that it's not occupied. You know, it's not full, it's not saturated. So the linkage is just describing the linkage between the carbon atoms in that fatty acid chain. So you have saturated, completely full, or you have monounsaturated, just one is not full, and then you've got polyunsaturated, where many are not full. So, and then when you get into what we call omega-3 and omega-6, it just tells you the position of the unsaturated bond. So it takes a talk all in itself about fats, so we could go into the fats and the oils, but it's a very good point because people don't understand when we talk about some of these terms.
I don't understand after you just described.
Yeah, so basically saturated fats are not generally healthy for you, and the monounsaturated fats are kind of neutral, and the polyunsaturated fats can be beneficial, but they can also go bad quickly. Okay, so that's the pros and cons. And the food companies like to use saturated fats because they don't go bad. Saturated fats don't tend to get oxidized and go bad quickly. And they want things to stay good on the shelves for as long as possible so they can sell it to you. So that's why they tend to move towards saturated fats in their foods if they have to use some kind of fat or oil. So initially they would use animal fats like lard and stuff like that, but then Crisco and stuff like that. And then later they go, oh no, that people are going to look at that and not want to buy it. So they switched over to like palm and coconut oils, which are saturated, so they don't go bad. Because those unsaturated bonds tend to be easily oxidized, or you might say rusted, or go rancid. That's what happens to oils. And so they want to stay with the saturated variety. The other thing about going for saturated variety is that when you're heating oil or heating fat, the saturated fat does not burn as quickly. So you can go to higher temperatures and not burn and smoke and get all that going on in the pan. So that's why they tend to like to use saturated fats. Does that answer your question? I know it's kind of hard to answer it in a simple term, but you need to kind of go back to chemistry, unfortunately, to kind of know what we're talking about. So what happens with the partially hydrogenated fat is a lot of times those polyunsaturated fats are liquid at room temperature, and they want to make them more solid. So, because people don't like to spread oil on their toast or whatever, or their bagel, they want to they don't want to pour it on, they want to spread it on. So they make it more solid. And the way to make it more solid is to make it more saturated, because most saturated fats are solid at room temperature. Okay, that's why the butter will sit out there. Okay, but if they just use the plant oils or margarines, they would generally just run out or melt out. And so they make it partially hydrogenated. They change the chemical structure in order to make it more solid. So the partially hydrogenated plant oil are called trans fats, because when they make them saturated, it changes the molecular structure. So it's not like a really good saturated fat, it's an altered saturated fat. It changes the molecule form. And it's chemically it's the same, but structurally it's different. There are different forms. All right, then there's the interesterified fats. They can be modified palm or soy oil, or fully hydrogenated coconut oil. We don't see that. You don't see interesterified fats. I haven't seen that on a label for a long time, so I don't even know if they use that term anymore. And the trans fats are supposed to be out of our food supply as of 2022, but there's still some around. So you still have to look for something that's partially hydrogenated. Okay? Now, the tricky thing is about fats is that anything less than half a gram, 0.5 grams, can be labeled as 0. Okay? That's a lie. How many of you use those non-spray or non-stick sprays? Do you have those non-stick sprays? What does it say on the can?
0.
0 fat, right? It'll say 0 fat on the front, it'll say 0 fat on the label. Did you look at the ingredients? What's the ingredient? What? Oil. What is oil?
Fat.
100% fat. How did they do that? How can you get something, the only ingredient is oil and it's 0 fat? They don't lie. They get you by this 0.5 gram rule. So 0.5 grams, if it's less than 0.5 grams, they can say 0. So what do? They manipulate something that's 100% fat. How do you get 100% fat down to under 0.4 or under 0.5 grams? What? Yes! You cut the serving size. So what's a serving size of non-stick spray? 1/10 of a second. Psst. That's it. That's it. 0 fat. Psst. But it's 100% fat. So people are saying, oh, it's fat-free. Okay, that's what happens. So interesting, right? It's truth, but it's a lie. Much like Satan. One of Satan's biggest modes of getting people is lies, right? Deception, lies, and that's why Jesus said, "I've come to give you the truth." And the truth will set you free from believing those lies. The lies that people believe are their truth, right? To them, it's their truth. But Jesus has come to tell the truth, to set us free from being under captivity, bondage, slavery to these false beliefs. In his case, he was specifically talking about beliefs in God and who his father was. Okay, so keep these things in mind. So one is you remember how many calories per gram of fat? 9. Okay. You want to stay under how many percent of calories from fat? 20%. Good. Okay, and you're going to look for these kinds of fats, the saturated animal fat, particularly the saturated plant fats, which are the most common right now, and if there are any trans fats, we call them. And unfortunately, there is no safe limit to trans fat. So anytime you see any amount of trans fat, even if it tells you it's less than 5.5% or it says 0, and you see trans fat in the ingredients, that one should be, you don't even consider that. Because there's no safe amount of trans fat that you can take. All right, then you're looking at sugar. Okay, so we've gotten salt, fat to sugar. And then the sugar, you're not looking at percentages, you're not talking about grams per se. You're just looking at where the sugar or sweetener ingredients come in the ingredients list. The ingredients list is supposed to list what's the largest component by weight first, then the second, then the third, and you go on down. Okay, so the closer that the sugar gets to the front of the line, the more sugar there is in that product. Okay, so what you're looking for then is where does the sugar come in the ingredient list? And generally you don't want it in the first 3. And if you're really kind of strict, like if you have a problem with glucose or diabetes or pre-diabetes, you might not want it even in the first 5 ingredients. And the food companies, they're like drug companies, the food companies sometimes make things in a way to lower your perception of where the sweetness is coming from. They do it in 2 ways. One is they put water as one of the ingredients. Okay, they just list that as one of the ingredients out there. And then they also use multiple sweeteners. Because if you wonder, like, why do they have to put, they're looking at something, you're looking at, well, there's brown sugar, there's cane sugar, and there's honey, and then there's some agave, and then there's some maltose, and then they got 5 or 6 sweeteners. Look at a granola bar or some of these energy bars sometime. Trail mix bars, and you look at them and you're like, man, why do they have 5 different sweeteners in here? Well, if they just all had it under one sweetener, where would it be? It'd be one of the first ingredients. And everyone would go like, oh no, that's too much sugar. Instead, they sprinkle sweeteners throughout, and because they're smaller amounts than the main ingredients, like a nut or a seed or something like that, or a date, then it comes up lower, but you got all these multiple ones sprinkled throughout the ingredients, and the ingredients list is like 20 things in there. All right, so you're looking at where does the sugar come in the ingredients list. All right, and you're looking for words like sugar, brown sugar, turbinado sugar, honey, molasses. These are all sweeteners. Maple syrup, corn syrup, it could be agave syrup, fructose, cane syrup. Anything that ends with an OSE, so you know glucose, right? You know the word glucose. Most people know that word glucose. Or sucrose for table sugar. It's an OSE word. OSE is a sugar. Could be maltose, lactose, galactose, fructose, maltose, dextrose. It's a sugar. If it ends in OL, it's an alcohol. So whether it's sorbitol, maltitol, dulcitol, erythritol, those are all sugar alcohols. Okay, it's not the ethyl alcohol that makes people drunk, but it's a sugar alcohol. It's just an OL name. So the OSE is the sugar name. So when you see those words in there, it's the type of sugar. Okay. Now the nutrition label does give total sugar, but unfortunately that doesn't separate out what's natural there and what's added. But sometimes the labels will tell you how much is added. Okay. All right. Here we have Honey Nut Cheerios again. And look at the ingredients list.
Sugar's number 2.
Where is sugar?
2? The second one?
Yeah, number 2. Okay. So then they have oat bran, cornstarch, and then what? Honey. Then what? Brown sugar. So in the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ingredients, you've got 3 sweeteners.
Yeah.
Okay? 3 sweeteners in the first 6 ingredients. And the first one comes as the second ingredient. So, yeah, would you keep this one? No, it doesn't. It falls in the first 3 ingredients, so that one is gone. What's that?
But it tastes good.
It tastes good.
Yes. But do you remember the quote yesterday? We do not eat merely for the gratification of
Tastes.
appetite,
And it's gluten-free.
but for health. You know. Okay. You're looking for health, for the strengthening of the body. All right. Now, one thing you can look for in grain and fiber. When you're looking at grain and fiber, you're looking for 100%. And you want to make sure that it doesn't say contains 100%. You want to make sure that it says it is 100% whole. Okay? That way you know it's all 100% grain. Because if it just says contains,
No.
then you don't know how much is in there, because contain could be 1%. 1% of that grain could be whole. It contains it. It doesn't tell you how much. So you need to say 100% whole. Other things like sprouted are good. Rolled, stone ground, and cracked. Those are okay terms. That doesn't lessen its 100% quality of being 100% whole grain. All right, so how do you figure out how much fiber is in it? Because we're going to talk about fiber later. And the carbohydrate grams, you divide them by the fiber grams, because fiber is a carbohydrate. And so you should have a ratio of 5 to 7 or less. Okay? Now, for those of you who made it today, we've got a tool for you that you can take to the market with you. You don't have to take a notebook or anything like that from all the notes you're taking right now. See, we made these laminated cards, wallet size, purse size, and it will give you these rules that we've gone over. Yeah, hand them out for me, thanks. So that you don't have to try to memorize until you get to know this. If you know it if you do it often enough, you won't even need the thing. But to help you initially, so you don't have to carry around a notebook or something like that or try to figure out what it was, you can use this little card. It has the rules on it, the numbers, and so that you can. So what we want you to do is we're going to see here's some ratios of carbohydrate and fiber. So you notice that in their whole form, that in general, you're in that 5 to 7 range. Interestingly enough, brown rice doesn't have that much fiber. I mean, it's got a little higher percentage of carbs to fiber. But you can see also where the legumes, like the beans, peas, and lentils, are really good. Their ratio is way down, really low. So in other words, there's a lot of fiber compared to the carbohydrate. Okay, thank you. All right, any questions? So you can see this is how it is in its intact state. Look at wheat. So wheat is like 6, a ratio of 6. So if you see something, ingredient, this is a wheat product, and you see that the carbohydrate to fiber ratio, when you divide it out, you go like, man, that's like 13, 15. Well, you know without even them telling you anything that that's processed. Okay, that means the fiber's been removed, because you know naturally it's down in the 5 to 7 range. So when you see it's high, like 15, I've seen it as high as 20, 25, going like, wow, they've really taken all the fiber out of the thing.
Is that under carbohydrate on the?
Yes, it'll be on the carbohydrate label. We'll look at that. Okay, so this is the summary. You check the sodium in milligrams versus the calories in the serving. Okay, you want the sodium to be equal or less. You check the fat. You want the fat to be 20% or less of the calories, and look at the kinds of fats. You want to avoid those fats that, the saturated fats, any trans fats. And then you want to read the ingredients list for looking for those fats and looking for where the sugar is in the ingredients list. Okay, and then you can take a look at the fiber as well. So that's it. You can quickly scan the nutrition facts label in order to see whether it's going to be acceptable or not. Okay, so we're going to do a lab now. We're going to have you look at something. This is the other thing, the PLU code. So if you go to the produce section, there are PLU codes that are on little labels, and they're stuck on the fruit or the vegetable or whatever. And this can help you determine whether something is organic or not, something has been GMO'd or not, things like that. So if it's a 5-digit code, you're looking for that 5-digit code that starts with a 9. That means it's organic. If it's organic, then it also obviously can't be sprayed and all that kind of stuff. Now, if it's got a 5-digit code that starts with an 8, it means it's been genetically modified. So you don't want an 8, you want a 9. And the 4-digit codes can either start with a 3 or 4, and they're just conventionally grown. So they could be sprayed. Okay? So you're really looking for the 9. If you're looking for organic, non-GMO, you want to get the PLU code with a 9 at the beginning. 5-digit code starting with a 9. Okay, so let's look. We're going to do a practice. So let's see how much you've assimilated here. Now, would you think this would be something good to eat? The ingredients are whole wheat flour, oatmeal, wheat bran, cane, molasses, carrots, canola oil, sweet potatoes, apples, ground flaxseed, parsley, garlic, salt, mixed tocopherols, which are vitamin E. That's just added for freshness. Is this okay to eat? No. Why?
You've got too many sugars in there.
Too many sugar? Well, the sugar is in the 4th ingredient.
Sweet potatoes is sweet.
Well, sweet potatoes are not a sugar. They're sweet, but they're not a sugar. They're not an added sugar.
The alcohol and the OL for the taco.
The what?
The OL after with mixed.
The alcohol? I don't see the alcohol.
Preserved with mixed.
The OL.
Oh, the tocopherols? Okay, that OL is not an alcohol. That's good. Good question. That was no one has ever said that before. But tocopherols are vitamin E.
Oh.
Okay, vitamin E. All right. So,
Well, it doesn't say it's 100% whole wheat flour.
well, that's true. All right. Well, sometimes you do have to read the front of the package.
Oven baked dog biscuits?
Yeah.
Is that what we're reading?
Yeah, those ingredients list for dog biscuits. So sometimes you do have to read the front of the package just to know that you're in the right section of the store. Okay?
But it's vegan.
But it was vegan, yeah. Okay. All right. That was just a trick question. All right. So here is a nutrition fact, a label that we want you to practice on. All right. This is a bar, whatever it is, some kind of a bar, which is 1 serving size. And how many calories per serving? 180. Okay. And how much sodium is there?
140.
140. Is it okay?
Yeah.
On the sodium. Good. Yeah, it's equal or less. It's less than the 180. All right. How about the fat? It should be 20%. What's 20% of 180? What's 20%? What number do you want in your head? 36. Okay, so you're looking at the fat, and are they telling you how many calories from fat? No, they're telling you the grams from fat, which is what?
27
18.
calories.
Well, how many grams of fat are there?
3 times 9.
It says total fat at the top there.
Oh, 15.
15 grams. Yes, okay, we're well over we're well over 36. Right? You're over 100
So you do that 15 grams
times 9, right? Okay, it's 135. So 135 is way above 36. Okay? practically 4 times or more. And so you are way high on the fat. If you want to just be interested in like what kind of fat is there, you look at the ingredients list and what kind of fats are there here.
Saturated, trans fat.
What kind of fat is in here that's making the fat so high?
Mono, say cocoa butter.
It's the fourth ingredient. There's almonds, peanuts, sixth, palm kernel oil. Okay? That's the one you didn't want to see. So not only is it high in fat, it's high in the fat you don't want. It's high in the tropical oil or plant saturated fat. Okay? And if you're going to go on, by now you should have thrown this away because already you see the sodium was okay, but the fats are disqualified. But you want to go on, look at the sugars. All right, where's the sugar? It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's fourth, so it'd be okay unless you really want to be strict about it. And you can see though how much is added sugar. See, it has total sugars was 5, but it says of the 5, 4 were added. So how much is 4 grams of sugar? 1 teaspoon. So there's a teaspoon of sugar or honey in this bar. Each teaspoon is 4 grams. Okay, so basically this would not be an acceptable bar to have. Okay, next. All right, here's lentils from Trader Joe's. I guess you have a Trader Joe's in Murfreesboro now, right? Okay. So this is lentils, steamed lentils. Here's the nutrition facts on this. How many calories per serving? 120, and it's only a half a cup. So if you're taking a cup of this, then you're going to be at 240 calories. But let's look at the sodium. What's the sodium? 240. Is it good?
Yeah, not too bad. No.
It's twice the calories, okay? So no, it's too much sodium. Too much sodium. Because if you ate a whole cup, you'd get 480. And you know you need maybe around 1,200 for the day. So you're way up there. So again, though, you have to put it in context. What are you having for the whole day or the rest of the day? You know, what have you had that has any sodium in it? If you've had salads all day and fruit all day, you haven't gotten any of the sodium, then maybe you could have this, right? Because that's the only thing with sodium in it that you've had for the whole day. But if you got to look, what else am I going to have for the whole day? Then that may, it's already your double. Okay, so you're 240. All right, so that was too high in the sodium. How about the fat? How many fat grams are allowed? How many fat calories are allowed? You have 120 in the serving. How many fat calories are allowed if you want to be at 20%? 24, right? How many fat calories are there here? 0. So it's good. It's good from a fat standpoint. It was too high in the sodium. And are there any sweeteners? The ingredients: lentils, salt, and natural flavors. No added sugars. So it'd be good on the sugars, and good on the fat, not good on the sodium. So again, you've got to look through the day and say, okay, it's good in everything except the sodium. What am I going to have that has sodium in it for the rest of the day? If you're going to go and have pizza, you're going to go out to eat, forget it. Okay, because you're going to get a lot of salt. Or you're going to open up, if you're going to get a bunch of crackers, or you're going to eat potato chips. It's like, okay. All right, here's some edamame soybeans. How many calories in a half a cup serving? 120. And they tell you already the calories from fat. Now, how many calories are you allowed at 20%? 24, exactly, 24. How many calories are from fat? 45. Is that too much?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. So soybeans are a rich food. And this is all it is. All the ingredients are soybeans and salt. But they didn't add any fat. This isn't soybeans in oil or anything like that. It's just a soybean. Soybeans are naturally high in fat. But it's a natural fat. It's a whole plant fat. You're not getting it as oil. But that's where they get soybean oil. Because the soybeans have a lot of oil. They have fat in them, okay? So it is better to eat the soybean than the soybean oil. The soybean oil is extracted, refined, processed out of the soybean. So, but if you eat it whole, much healthier because of all the other ingredients in the soybean. But you have to realize it is a high-fat food. But can you have it? Sure. But, you know, but in this case, though, what disqualifies this?
Sodium.
The sodium. Look at the sodium. 450. Okay? It's almost 4 times the amount of sodium you want to get in a half a cup. So, can you have this? Maybe 1. You know, drink a lot of water with it. Eat some fruit with it with the potassium. You can tolerate more sodium in your diet if you have a lot of potassium. Okay? The problem with the standard American diet is too much salt and not enough potassium. Okay? The big 3 nutritional problems in the world, and America too, is too much salt. It's the number 1. Then comes not enough whole grain. We eat way too much refined flour. Way too much. Everything that's baked, sold to you is pretty much refined flour. And then third is not enough fruit, which would give you potassium.
Fruit, potassium?
Yeah.
Blood, potassium and fruit?
Yeah.
Good.
And vegetables. So there's where you want to get so people are not eating enough fruit. That's the number 3 problem as far as nutrition in the world and the United States. Number 4 is not enough legumes, I think. Number 5 is not enough vegetables. So it's all plants. I mean, we have a deficiency of whole unprocessed plants and then too much salt. The only big nutritional problem that's an excess is the sodium. That's why we're looking and watching the sodium. Okay. But the rest are all deficiencies. We're not getting enough fruits, vegetables, whole grain. Okay, go on to Brussels sprouts. How many calories in a serving? 60. How many calories from fat? 15. Now, what's our 20% limit? 12, right. So are we above?
Yeah.
A little, but not a ton. I mean, you're talking about 15 versus 12. I mean, it's like, okay, but why, where would fat come from in a Brussels sprout, right? Yes, exactly. The number 2 ingredient is olive oil. So again, how about your sodium though? That's 105. It's on the high side, right? But you do have a lot of potassium from the Brussels sprout. They don't always list potassium, which is interesting, but they did on this, which is nice because it tells you, okay, the sodium is a little high because the 3rd ingredient is salt. So it's still best to get your Brussels sprouts from the produce section, not from the box where they add oil and salt. Okay? All right, sweet potato ribbons, Trader Joe's. All right, how many calories per serving here? 90 for 1.5 cups. That's a large amount of those. Okay, sweet potatoes. And how many calories, how much sodium? 60. So it's good? Yeah, compared to 90. It's less than the 90. And what is the fat? 0. So is it going to be okay in the fat? Sure. And are there any added sweeteners? Just a natural sweet potato. That's it. But there's nothing added. Okay, this is a natural sweet potato. That's the only ingredient. There's no sugars added in this. Okay? So this one's great. This is one thing you could take off the shelf, put in your cart. Yeah, it's good. All right, squash zigzags. How many calories per serving? There's 4 of those zigzags, 40 calories. What's the sodium? 0. Okay, what's the fat? 0. Okay. Anything added for sweeteners? No, you just have butternut squash. There's another good one. Okay, it's just plain butternut squash, right? So see how fast you can, if you start getting to do this, you can just boom, 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 just run down the sodium, run down the fats, run down the sugar. You're done.
Say something about the carbohydrates. I'm confused about it.
Okay, good. All right, good. So someone's asking about the carbohydrates. The total carbohydrate is 10. The dietary fiber is 2. What's the ratio? 10 to 2, which is what? 5. Is that good? Yeah, we said 5 to 7 is great. So fiber-wise, this is good. Sugars in here is 2. I don't know why they have that, because there's 10 total. Where's the other 6? It's crazy. Okay, but the sugars are 2. So there's no added sugar. This is the natural sugar in the butternut squash. Okay? Squash is a high carbohydrate food. But it's not bad, because it's whole butternut squash. It's not a processed, refined sweetener. Yes?
So is it good to buy, like now you can go to the store and you find the things in the can, like the one you saying it is good, but it is going to expire 2028 or 2029?
It will expire in 2028 or 2029?
Yeah.
Well, then it's got some kind of packaging to preserve it.
So is it still good?
Well, you have to read the ingredients and see what's in the ingredient section. See if there are preservatives. Sometimes they're vacuum packed, so they may last a while.
What about just buying the raw beans?
That's always the best. Like I said, get the ones that don't have a package on it. You know, that are not, don't have to have a label. Those are the best.
Because you don't have to read it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't have to do the math, don't have to do all of that stuff. Very good. Don't have to read it. Okay. Any other questions? I have a whole bunch of other more things, but it's just going to be repetition, just going through the exercise of going through this. Yes?
My family doctor and I are about to have a fight.
Okay.
He says I have to give up bananas.
Okay, and why does he say you have to give up
He
bananas?
says to pass by the bananas.
Because it's what?
He says to pass by the bananas.
And why?
Because I'm what you would call before you become a diabetic. He said before that.
Okay.
So he's gonna just leave all the sweeteners alone, and I said, bananas aren't that sweet, at least not here in the United States. And there he goes on and on. So I said, I rolled up my nose at him, he understood the point. The other thing was, as people will tell you around here, I have a favorite ice cream. It's called Chunky Monkey.
There's probably a reason for that name, but
It's bananas with chocolate with walnut chunks.
Yeah, it's really good.
And I get a whole lot of comments around here about that flavor ice cream. Now, I don't have it every day. I am blessed if I have it once or twice a year, maybe 3 times a year now. But boy, they carry on around here. I don't see any big problem with bananas. And I don't see that much problem with walnuts. You haven't said anything yet about chocolate, so I'm listening very carefully.
no, the nuts and the bananas are probably not the problem. It's the ice cream.
Well, now,
Those are the additives. The banana and the nuts are just, and the chocolate are just added on the top or whatever. But what's in the ice cream is probably more of a problem. So what is that made out of?
it's too much cream.
Yeah, which comes from
A cow.
cow, which is
Well,
animal protein, animal fat, which is saturated fat,
why are you telling me?
which is cholesterol, which is hormones, which is environmental toxins.
The ice cream's all sugar.
What?
The ice cream's all sugar.
But it doesn't,
The ice cream's all sugar.
and it has sugar added besides. So you've got the combination of sugar and fat. Bad combination.
But they're cute, the cow.
The cows are cute. Have you seen them up close? I'm not talking about the picture on the carton. I'm talking about the real cow that got milked.
They stink.
Yeah. So I the nuts, the chocolate, and the probably though it's milk chocolate, which is probably not. But if it was dark chocolate and nuts and bananas, no problem. But the ice cream part, I just leave the ice cream part out. Just take the nuts, the bananas, and the chocolate.
We'll talk to you later.
So bananas, if you're pre-diabetic, not a problem. Not a problem.
Just don't tell
Okay.
your
But it's what you have the bananas with. That's the problem. Okay. Because remember, the insulin resistance comes from too much fat in the cells. So have the banana, but don't have the banana with ice cream. Don't have the banana with fried banana, which has just been dipped in batter and soaked in oil and fried. I mean, there's where you've transformed a nice healthy banana into a lethal bomb.
In the United States, they call it plantain. On the islands, they call it plantain.
Yeah.
They like to fry them up.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, are you trying to tell me I shouldn't fry the banana?
Correct.
Plantain?
Correct.
Well, now we're going to have to definitely.
You can do air frying. Air fry those plantain chips. Don't need the oil. Just air fry them. Oil free. Yes.
This sodium that you're talking about in all these labels, is that different from the pink salt, Himalayan salt, or the Celtic salt? Is that any difference?
It won't matter what kind of salt they tell you is in the ingredients. Like they say sea salt, Himalayan salt, pink salt, whatever. They're just telling you the milligrams of sodium, which is what you're interested in. So yes, those other salts are going to be a little different because they're not going to be completely purified, refined to just sodium chloride. They'll have maybe other trace elements in them. Some other minor things like zinc and calcium and cobalt and whatever minerals, trace minerals may be in the salt, in its natural form. So they won't be as refined, but they still will give you the content of the sodium, which is what you want to know. Yes?
We have a controversy in our family, brown rice or white rice. There was a doctor on, I think it was on Facebook or Google, that's saying that brown rice is not as good for you as we once thought, that white rice is better. But we've always heard brown rice.
The brown rice is better.
I agree.
So the brown rice, because the brown rice retains the fiber and more of the nutrients. Well, the white rice, you're just getting practically 100% starch, and you're not getting the rest of the grain. So you want, like they said, the intact grain. So you don't want the polished rice or the white rice or that type of stuff. So though when it comes to arsenic, so we had this conversation on the way here about, unfortunately southern rice is not the healthiest. So get your rice that's grown elsewhere, even in California. Or get it grown in Japan or China, or well, maybe not China, but some other place. The reason is this: is that rice as a plant is very good at extracting a nutrient or a compound out of the soil called arsenic. And arsenic is a class 1 carcinogen equal to tobacco, plutonium, asbestos. Okay, so you don't want arsenic. So arsenic the rice plants are really good at extracting arsenic from the soil. And unfortunately in the South, when they had cotton, they used to use arsenic spray on the cotton to kill the boll weevils or whatever they were destroying the cotton. So that got into the soil. They take out the cotton, they replant with rice instead. And now the rice is extracting all of that arsenic out of the soil that was added. And so it's high concentrations of arsenic in southern grown rice. So, and it's about equal, and some will say, well, there's actually more in brown rice than in white rice. So that way, that may engender the controversy that brown rice is worse than white rice. But that's just looking at the content. How much is absorbed is a different story. So because it is brown rice and it is fiber, that stuff, arsenic, does not get absorbed. But there is some arsenic inside the husk and whatever, the inside the middle of the kernel of the rice. So you do get some arsenic even in the brown rice. But you don't get as much as the white rice. But there's still some. So if you look at total content, grain for grain, there's more arsenic in brown than white because you've got more stuff there. You've got the covering, you got this endosperm. But then when you have to digest it, that fiber doesn't get digested, that arsenic doesn't get released, so that arsenic stays with the fiber. And you don't absorb it. So you actually get less net arsenic from brown rice than white rice. Even though if you look at the contents, the analyzed contents of the brown rice, it would have more arsenic than the white rice. So that is what can generate those back and forth controversies, like if that one's worse than this one or whatever. It's best to have none of them that are grown in the South, unfortunately. I mean, I hate to blacklist the whole area, but that's what we're looking at. We're trying to encourage people to, eat whole grain, and yet they're saying, well, then some people are swearing off brown rice completely, and that's throwing out the baby with the bathwater. So you want to just source your rice. If you're going to eat rice, eat brown rice, but then source it from somewhere else. Yes?
And this would carry on not just to rice, but tomatoes and corn and different things. It would still take the arsenic from the soil and put it in homegrown vegetables like you buy at the farmer's market.
I don't know about those vegetables. I just know really about the rice. I mean, it could be there are other plants that do that, but I know rice is exquisitely good at extracting arsenic. So they've always issued those warnings. Well, so they're telling some people to limit their rice intake. But I think if you source it right, you don't have to limit. But I'm not sure about other plants. That's interesting. I'll have to look into that, like tomatoes and stuff like that.
Is it labeled? Where is it grown?
Yes. Yeah, you can find out where it's grown.
I don't know if they're Japanese.
Yeah, a lot of times you don't pay attention, but now you can maybe pay attention. All right, let's take a break and be back in 10 minutes. We'll start again in 10 minutes. And we'll talk about fiber. Did anyone not get a card? Label reading card? Did anyone not get one? Got here late or something? Okay. All right, good. I hope those will help you.